Right, good evening everyone. Welcome to the Digital Jersey Hub. It's good to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. The way we're going to run this tonight, I'm going to say a few words. We're going to, Mariotta is going to talk about how the scheme is going to work. We want to leave as much time as possible for Q&A. For those of you who are keen to do it, and I still hate bloody QR codes no matter what they did for the pandemic, if you scan the QR code, we have Slido tonight we're going to use to asking questions. What is the code if people don't want to use a QR code, Seb?
1028050.
It's real user friendly, isn't it? Say that again.
1028050.
1028050 if you don't want to use the QR code. Okay. And we're going to try and get through as many Q&A. We've got the Impact Jersey team here tonight, and my thanks, we've got a team from government here as well to answer all of your questions. But first of all, just to say a few words, I wanted to introduce Assistant Chief Minister and Assistant Minister for, I'm going to say the Economy Department, because Economic Development, Sport, Tourism, Culture, they were supposed to change that years ago, weren't they? But obviously we've been working very closely with the government team across government over the past year or so to put this together in a form that everyone was happy with, and that we could all make sure we got the best value out of it as taxpayers for Jersey, which is really important. And the team from government have been really helpful. So I want to invite Deputy Alex Curtis up to say a few words.
Thank you, Tony. Right. I don't want to keep us because I know the part is Q&A, but I think as Tony says, I got into government, I think June last year, it's just a year, and pretty much as soon as I did that, Tony came knocking, and he said, by the way, the last Assembly approved a proposition for £20 million for solving the island's challenges, and it falls to you as Assistant Minister to help shape this. So true to that, we've spent a long and challenging, but really I think fruitful 9 months creating from the Technology Accelerator Programme what we have now today, Impact Jersey. We as a government across ministries have set a range of strategic priorities, and Mariotta will talk about them later. What we haven't done in this entire process is provide solutions. As you'll hear, and I'm sure you'll have known from many of the press releases, the point of Impact Jersey, and the part that I'm really hopeful for, is that we're going to see islanders and innovators come with solutions to challenges that we may not know ourselves the solutions to. I've set a high barrier of expectation on the team and actually on everyone who's going to apply, that we are going to see the maximum value on public money for the island's good. But I'm really excited that's hopefully going to deliver some really creative and long-lasting impact for Jersey. And really, this is the first programme we are launching. So this is an exciting chance to put in what is a programme in an open programme that's going to be dived in. So you're going to be having the opportunity to bid on any of the strategic priorities before we launch a challenge programme, which is a larger programme later in the year. So I do hope you ask questions. We are here from Impact Jersey, from government and myself to help answer questions later. But do get involved, register your interest, and obviously ask for any help from the Impact Jersey team you need.
Thanks, Alex. I just want to talk about, we've got to clicker here. So before Mariotta comes up, I just want to talk about a bit of background. And as Alex said, literally the very last thing that went through the last Assembly Friday night after going since Monday, when, as Alex knows, everyone wants to go home, it was all of about 6 o'clock in the evening. And you can imagine what that sort of week that was for the Digital Jersey team. But that went through the Assembly, it went through the Assembly strongly, and that's called P75, which was, as Alex said, it was called the Technology Accelerator Fund. One of the things we always said is we need to put the work in to design a detailed fund and get support about that. So we went through a tender process. We appointed Challenge Works, which is part of Nesta in the UK, who not only run Challenge funds themselves. You might have heard of the Longitude Prize, for example, that's currently, it's done antibiotic trials. It's currently doing a dementia prize. And they've also helped governments around the world, including the Canadian government, to develop programs like this. So we worked very closely with them towards the end of last year. We established, as Alex was saying, a Government and Digital Jersey working group to develop and agree those plans. That's been working through a lot of meetings over that past 9 months. A lot of you have already been part of an extensive consultation with businesses, entrepreneurs, industry groups, ALOs, government officers, scrutiny panel, and ministers. And the ministers' point is really quite key. So we had most of the ministers together in a couple of workshops to go through what their priorities were, because P75, the original proposition, talked about what the key challenges were, and there are a few new ones, but actually the big challenges around environmental challenges, economic challenges, and we've been talking recently about the productivity challenge, and also environmental and social challenges. And we've worked with the ministerial workshops to agree those priorities. I talked about the Canadian government. We had some of you, if you went to our annual review towards the beginning of the year, you would have seen a spokesman from the Canadian government who runs Impact Canada. Yes, we obviously nicked the name from them, although not without going through about 200 alternatives and coming back to Impact Jersey was the best brand. And it's worth saying that we wanted to call it Impact Jersey and move it away from a fund to be really clear about what this is about. This is not about investing in startups. This is not about replicating the Jersey Innovation Fund, even though the Jersey Innovation Fund was not the failure that lots of people talked about it being at the time. There was one failure out of those 7 loans. But obviously talking about a fund, especially in Jersey, people think it's investing in startups. By calling it Impact Jersey, we want to be very clear. This is about funding technology projects which will make an impact in Jersey in those key areas. So I think the best way of summarising it, if the Innovation Fund was about funding companies to do what they wanted to do, this is about funding people to do what we need as an island. And that's really key, and that will come out when Mariotta will talk about the priorities. And what you will have seen recently is that we set up the Government Oversight Group, which was part of the proposition. That made a recommendation to the ministers to approve the strategic programme plan and the first open programme plan that we're going to talk about today. So really what Impact Jersey is, it is the overall scheme, and within that overall scheme you are going to see a number of different programmes over the coming years focusing on different issues. But to take you through how that scheme is going to work and broadly, and how the first open programme is going to work in detail, I'd like to hand you over to Mariotta Smuts, our Head of Strategy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Can you guys hear me at the back? Fantastic. As Tony was saying, this has been, and the Minister was saying, this has been a program which we've deliberately taken our time to design, and we've designed it for you, our innovation sector. So there are some aspects of this first program that we'd like to learn, test and trial. So I think understanding as a scheme, what is our why? So Impact Jersey was created to accelerate and strengthen Jersey's technology ecosystem and tackle some complex challenges that the island's facing. It's also there to support the island's future economy, environmental ambitions, and community goals. Now, I know I'm going to probably karaoke a lot of this behind me, but I think it's worth taking into account some of the design principles which we put in place as well. So you've heard it's called Impact Jersey. It needs to do what it's supposed to do, and that's make a real impact for Jersey, really shift the dial. So that's the type of ideas that we're looking for. It needs to operate in an open and transparent manner. That means we need to be able to communicate well with you. We need to be able to report properly through to ministers and our governance structures. So we need to be able to make sure, that we are doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. One of the best principles that we want to operate is the learn, adapt, and share principle. This type of program has not been done before in Jersey, as far as I know. And this is our opportunity as an island to learn how we can do things better. And so that's okay. What does that mean? That means we need to reframe what we think about failure. We need to be very clear about the metrics in order to move in the right direction so that we understand what success actually means. The other principle here is ease of use. And as you will be using this scheme, this needs to be easy for you to understand, needs to be easy for you to apply. It needs to be able to sort of understand when we need to flex and change and iterate. But part of this is that Digital Jersey, as the delivery partner, we can't do it by ourselves. So this is one of the other areas we would like to make sure that we've got enduring partnerships in place to make sure we can deliver well for the island. So there are two big mechanisms in which we want to sort of operate Impact Jersey. The first is through an open program, and this is a competitive grant. And I want to make sure we can sort of really highlight this is a competition. This competitive grant will be available to people aimed really at small, medium enterprise, because we think this is the area we need to intervene to help sort of our grassroots innovators succeed. Challenge programs will be the other mechanism. And as has been seen around the world, challenge programs and challenge prizes have been a real new method of helping to deliver on big-scale projects that can deliver for different societies. So this will be a very specific major issue that we'll identify that affects Jersey and offers, a more complex funding mechanism. So back to the first open program. And this will be targeted, as I was saying before, to Jersey's innovators, entrepreneurs, and grassroots problem savers. So for the first open program, we're very clear that technology plays a significant role in how we work, live, and play on the island. Anecdotally, there is a lack of funding and support for small, medium enterprise in the Jersey economy, and we're reaching out to small-scale innovators because we believe those innovators are in a strong position to understand those challenges, but also they're in a strong or their best place to try and solve them. So what we also want to do from an Impact Jersey perspective is we want to understand more about the size, the makeup, the characteristics of our innovation sector and our innovation ecosystem. So this is our first opportunity to try and test, to try and learn, and eventually we'll be able to share some of those results. So how will it work? This first program will have a total pool of £500,000. We'll be able to fund projects up to a maximum of £75,000 that will support your project. But your project will need to align with a lot of the strategic priorities which we'll talk about in this next slide. There's some eligibility criteria which needs to be met. The lead applicant can only have one application per program call. The application must, and that's a really important word, must create an impact for Jersey. For this first program, this is dedicated to a Jersey-based business only. And the project will need to start within 3 months of award, and that project spend should come to an end and be delivered within 12 months. The application deadline will be on midnight, 31st of August. That's about 8 weeks. So we've deliberately kept it nice and wide and open to give you an opportunity to apply. So assessing all of these applications will be an independent panel of judges. So it won't be Digital Jersey. They'll be selected and they'll be able to assess, objectively. So what are the island priorities? When you go to the website and you apply, you'll see the full list of priorities, but just for brevity, these are the higher level island priorities. So improving productivity in existing economic sectors, support development of new economic sectors, improve health and well-being of islanders, sustainable transport options, supporting skills and development, responding to the climate emergency, improving supply chain resilience, and addressing housing and infrastructure needs for islanders. So these are deliberately broad, they're very wide. So the challenge then is, do you have a project which could align and deliver for Jersey, which could sit under one or many of these particular priorities? So, some criteria. We've deliberately kept it to 5 rather than 6 or 7. And so your idea in innovation, you need to be able to describe what it is, what it does, how it creates impact. You'll need to articulate really well, why do you need Impact Jersey funding? What have you done to source funding elsewhere? What is the potential for market? What research or work have you done to really understand your commercial strategy? How are you going to commercialize on this, on your idea? Even though commercialization is not the main priority. Remember, it's about creating that impact. How are you going to deliver your project? So I think this is one area that's really interesting for us. You can have a fantastic idea. it's amazing. But without the ability to execute well, it's not going to go far. So you'll also need to describe, and this is being very clear, about what are the benefits that your project will achieve for the wider community, but also, what value for money that your project will have for the taxpayer. So what makes a good bid? And I know there'll be many people here who've been, putting in bids across, different areas. So these will probably be very familiar. Yeah, how does your idea or project align with one or more of the island priorities? Clear, succinct writing. Easy to understand. Do the numbers add up? Very basic stuff. But how can you describe, how do you deliver your project really well? So you need to be able to demonstrate all of these things. What support will Impact Jersey team or Digital Jersey provide for you? During that 8-week period, we'll have information sessions where you can book online, and you could have one-on-one sessions, up to 15 minutes, with an Impact Jersey team member. And they'll be able to help you with your idea, provide some advice, and maybe signpost where you should be able to go. But it could also be a really good conversation, because that could be a really fast fail. Your idea doesn't fit, I'm sorry, that's a no. And that's really good for you. You don't put the time and effort and resource into applying. We'll also make available some application guidance materials, so that'll be very clear and provide that real step-by-step advice and guidance on how to submit, when to submit, across the whole process as well. So, last slide from me. Here's the launch table. The open program will launch tomorrow, 29th of June, with an 8-week application window until the 31st of August. Just remind you, we'll have an independent judging panel. The projects will be expected to complete within 12 months. And so those who win will be granted up to 50% up front, but you'll receive 50% at an agreed milestone. And that agreed milestone will be different because there could be different depending on the type of project which has come through. So we're aiming to release a more complex challenge later on this year, and because this is an open program, we'd like to get into a regular cadence. And so next year, we plan to open our second open program in Q2. So I think we're going to open it up to...
Great, thanks Mariota. Oh, hang on, thanks Mariota. Right, so we've got some questions already, but please do go on Slido. What's the code again, Seb, if people missed it?
102-8050.
102-8050. We've got some questions already, but if you've got any other questions, please let us know. As well as Mariota and myself and Alex, we've got Amy and Seb from the Impact Jersey team. We've also got Louise Magris in government, who's the Senior Responsible Officer. Louise is very responsible, I have to say, for those of you who don't know her. Look, so let me try and clear some of these. We've got some fairly simple to answer questions, and I'll bring the team in if I need any support on these. We've agreed a code with Amy about how much she glares at me means that I'm getting it wrong. So the first one I've got here is what expenses does the scheme take into account, previous, future, within what time frame? Well, Mariota's talked about the funding and how we do that in case that was part of it. I think it's really up to you if you're putting in a bid to say what expenses are in there. But it's worth saying that, obviously the judges are going to be looking at things like what is the best use of that money. If you put in that you're going to spend most of the money, with apologies to the expensive consultants in the room, I can see a few, but I'm not going to try and linger on anyone in particular. If you say you're going to spend most of the money on 2 hours on an expensive consultant, that's probably not going to look as good as you putting in time and effort yourself, but also spending the money on technology, really putting it in. So really it's up to you what you put in there that you think presents the bid in the best way. And as I said before, we are going to look at giving people up to a maximum of 50% of the funding up front if they're successful. Depending on what the money's spent on, we can be flexible with that if necessary. And then we'll agree a key milestone that we will review with the bidder to release the second tranche of funding. What sort of time frame are we looking at for support? I think Mariotta's already covered that in terms of, we're looking at things you get going within 3 months and ideally complete within 12 months. But the sooner the better in some ways. The sooner you think you can have impact and get going, I think that is going to score highly with the judges. Do you own any part of our business being funded? No. No, we don't. It's not that as well. And I think there's a question later on about grants. So these are grants. They're not loans. They're not equity. Initially, we are looking at this as it is a grant program. What we don't know is later on, particularly when we get into the challenge funds, larger amounts of money, bigger projects, depending on what the project is, we will look at commercial flexibility to make sure we protect taxpayers' money, investment as well as we need to. But certainly for the open program, it is a grant. We are not looking for the money back. We are looking for the impact that money will get us. Is there a minimum type of entity accepted? The minimum is sole trader, I believe. And answering another question earlier on, if you haven't set up a company yet, that doesn't stop you from applying. And actually, you can potentially wait. I mean, if it was, for example, we talked about if a student had an idea for a project, they can wait until they have been selected and been told that they are going to win a prize, and then they can set up as a sole trader. And we will provide support with things like that, and be working with our partner Jersey Business to provide support as well. Can all directors apply for grants individually, or will they be taken as one application? I think that's called gaming the system. So I think that is, it's one project, one company. I think we might notice if Chris Clark and his fellow directors, sorry to pick on you, Chris, shouldn't sit there at the front, try and put in another bid. Where else have we got here? Would a joint application be permissible between a non-incorporated NFP association and a limited company?
Yes, I think so. We're looking for collaboration. That'd be great. So the lead applicant needs to be a registered entity in some form, a sole trader or a business. But yeah, collaboration, ideas that come together, great. That would be super. We'd love to see that.
What's NFP? Am I being thick? Not for profit, sorry. It's been a long week already. How long will it take for the judges' results? So the deadline, as Mariotta said, is the end of August. Ideally, we are looking to have the results by the end of September, but we don't know. It's the first time we've run this. We don't know how many bids we're going to get. If we get a relatively small number, it's going to be quicker. If everyone in this room bids and more people, that's going to take the judges a bit longer. So we're going to aim to get it done within a month. I would say the latest sort of mid-October. Yeah. 75k is a good start in building a successful tech solution to Iron Challenge. What scope is there for follow-on funding subject to pilot success? Good scope, actually. Actually, Gus has said that. Thank you for not being anonymous. I think you're the only person. I think we actually see this as being used as for pilots, for that sort of money. We are conscious, it's for some projects it might be a relatively small amount of money. We've got to start somewhere, we want to start carefully. None of us in this room want to mess this up because of a mistake, as we saw within the Innovation Fund. So we want to start off small amounts. I think, yes, suggestions that will look good are pilots, and then if a pilot is really successful, then maybe that provides the business case for private investment, maybe that provides the business case for investment from elsewhere, or it could provide the business case for challenge programs or another open program. We are going to be running, you'll notice this is open program 1, so you might be able to you can only do one bid within each open program, but if you do a great job in the first one, you want to do a follow-up bid, and later ones might be larger amounts, they might be a larger pool of money, we don't know. We'll see how it goes. And I've covered that. Is there scope for greater levels of funding in later programs? It's probably worth saying, so I've just said that on the open program. For the challenge program, Mariotta, do you want to talk about that in terms of levels of funding for challenge programs?
I think for the challenge programs, sorry, right in your face. For the challenge programs, there's a lot of research that needs to be done to sort of set up a challenge program, and we need to be quite clear and very specific about the funding mechanism, and then that would follow through as to the amount that we would go for being released. So if that makes a logical sort of sense. So depends on the specific problem that we're wanting to address. The amount we assume will be quite large, so in the millions, and we would need to make sure that we've got the right funding mechanism that we can choose.
Yeah. But again, I'm assuming, if we say we've got 2.5 million for a challenge fund, if there's such an amazing idea that it's going to cost £2 million, that could be considered if you want to put it forward, or if you think you've got more success putting in a pilot project and a smaller amount. You've obviously got questions I haven't seen yet on Slido. Looking at them laughing here.
Sorry, Tony. You were spoiling the surprise.
Well, yes, exactly. When will the full criteria be accessible? The website's going live tomorrow. What time, Kelly, is it going live tomorrow, do you think? Not that this will be hostage to fortune, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say about 9ish.
About 9ish, okay. You heard it here first. You've got kelly.barker@digital.je. If you're sitting there pressing refresh and it's not there, because I'm sure that's what you're all booked, you booked the day off to look at the Impact Jersey website tomorrow, haven't you? An early slide said applications were welcome from people and businesses, but the talk since has only mentioned business. Is it open to individuals? Yes, but as we said, at a minimum, you would have to set up as a sole trader. But as I said, you don't have to do that unless you find out you have been successful. But a condition of the funding will be that you have to set up as a business, but a sole trader will fine. There's an audit question. Amy, how will you audit the grants? Is that you or is that Louise? Or I'm not answering that one. Come on, you're the auditor.
How will we audit the grants? I'm not even sure I know what that question means. What we are going to be doing is agreeing with those who are successful what the criteria are for measuring that success. That will be part of the bid. You'll put that in your bid and we will agree that with you, or rather the judges will approve that. And as Tony and Mariota have both said, the grants will be typically 50% upfront, but then there will be some criteria to meet in order to prove that you are at the next stage, at the milestone that's been agreed. And we will be looking for some reporting back. So we will be looking at that point for some evidence of you having achieved what you said you'd achieved to get to that first milestone. And of course, once you've delivered your fantastic project, made this huge impact on Jersey, we're going to want to have a report on that and shout about it and talk about the impact that's been made. So there will be some work done with you to understand what impact has been achieved. So, but we'll be working with you on that.
Alex, I thought you might want to come in there. It's a good link, if you don't mind, to talk about your view on transparency and publishing stuff. Mariota, do you want to use Mariota's microphone?
Yeah, I think one thing throughout the creation of the strategic program plan, which is on impact.je, which governs the entire operation of the scheme beyond just this program, has been a focus on transparency. This is public taxpayers' money that is going ideally, well, if we choose the right people clearly, to businesses and individuals that will create impact for Jersey, and we should be able to see all the way through that. That doesn't mean we are expecting you to open up your expense books to the island, but it is a case of sharing with the Impact Jersey team the success, the lessons learnt. I've made it quite clear I would like to see applicants considering how they open source parts of their projects, how they create open data out of their projects. But really this is, simple, easy to use, as Mariota said, is the aim. But within that, good governance comes from clear communication about what's being done, who it's there to benefit, and ideally, being technology, there are many ways we can share and scale that benefit through open source, open data, and similar approaches.
Thanks, Alex. I'm caught up now on what I think you were probably laughing at the front row. Are commercial services involved in any way in the assessment of bids? If so, how do you hope to approve within 3 months? Well, I won't answer the second bit, particularly as they literally know where I live. No, they won't be. As we've said before, being serious for a moment, and I'm trying not to look at the person I bet no answer asked that question. No, it's going to be independent judges that look at these bids. Once they've gone through eligibility criteria, it's going to be independent judges look at it. It's worth saying, because I probably didn't do it, so government, and you saw us mention the oversight group, government will sign off each programme. So they've signed off how we are going to run the first open programme, the $500,000. Government will not decide how that money is allocated. They set the parameters, they set the objectives and things like that. It is delegated, Digital Jersey as the government's delivery partner to operate that. I mean, obviously if we do a really crap job at it, they're not going to approve another one. But it is not government, it is not civil servants, much as there are some lovely ones. And they're going to make those decisions. So hopefully that's fairly clear. If there is technology software involved, how, if at all, does the government M&D department get involved, and how would that potentially impact the deployment? It generally won't. I mean, if somebody has a bid that needs to interact in some way with government technology, then yes, depending on how successful the bid is, we might end up doing that. But again, back to what I was saying before, this is not going to be a government decision. It's not run by government departments day to day. Wow, we have got a lot of questions here. How open is the criteria for having an impact? Some health innovations would lead to qualitative rather than quantitative data. Wow. So it is very open. You'll see when we publish the website. It's up to you. I mean, we're not, as Alex said, we're looking for you for the solutions, but we can also look to you for some of the detailed problems. You know, what government have done, and actually, you know, we're very quick to criticise government here, sometimes for good reasons. Government have been very good about this. They're saying, we've got challenges. We don't know how to solve them all. I think those in the tech community have probably been quite impressed that the talk recently, and particularly from this government, has been about how technology can help Jersey solve its challenges. We talk about productivity and things like that. So if you think we haven't gone into detail enough on a problem, if you've got a problem, as long as it is linked to one of our overall objectives, that is a valid bid to put in. Yeah? Okay. We have to submit a business plan with your application. Depends what you mean by business plan. This is not about, as we said before, this is funding projects. So it's a project plan rather than a business plan. If you think a business plan will help your bid and help it stand out, that's up to you. As Mariota said, this is a competition. Could I use 75k funding to start my crypto trading business? Am I just allowed to say no to that? Can we just say no? Can we have a vote? No, we're not going to establish a precedent, but yes. Oh, that was yours. Oh, yeah, okay. That was our senior, not so responsible officer. Are the independent judges the same people who work as part of Impact Jersey to monitor progress of each project? I think the answer to that is no. They will be judges for that. The Impact Jersey team will monitor progress. I mean, it may be, as I said, we're going to learn as we go along, and it may be the judges want to sort of come back and they look at how things have gone and things like that, and you know, certainly for future programs, want to review what's worked well and what hasn't worked well, but generally they won't. How will the independent judging panel be recruited and selected? So we are at the moment in a process of identifying judges and approaching them. Certainly for the first open program, because it is exclusively on-island companies and individuals who put the bid in, we are going for exclusively off-island judges, because that is, you know, you'll see when we launch the website, there's detail about conflict of interest. Conflict of interest, whether actual or perceived, is obviously a big issue here in Jersey. So we're playing a bit safe by going for off-island judges and we have to make sure they know the context and things like that. Somebody used a great example in the team is, we better tell the judges if somebody puts in a great bid for a railway project in Jersey, we better tell them we don't actually have one, in case they're being off-island, they don't know. What else we got here? So, who assesses impact? Do we need to engage stakeholders, letter recommendations from government departments, agencies? What do you think, Mariota? Good question.
Yeah, it is a really good question. I think this really comes down to, you know, our opportunity as an organisation and probably as an island, you know, to really think differently about evaluation and what do we actually mean by impact. And that's a piece of work that my team's really considering at the moment, is how do we define these terms in a Jersey context? I think that's really, really important for us, because we need to be able to engage in a critical way, you know, with ourselves, but also with our stakeholders, with our users of the scheme. So we're coming up with an evaluation impact framework. We'll probably engage the market here and off island to make sure that we can have independent assessors come through, and it'll be a mix depending on the type of program, depending on the type of, you know, objectives that need to be sort of tracked and the metrics that we put in place. How do we understand performance? Are we moving in the right direction? So, you know, it's a work in progress, but we're really keen to make sure we've got those two important principles at the heart of it. That's independent and impartial assessment of how we're tracking.
Okay, thank you, Mariota. Another good question here. Is there any business support given after being successful in the grant? Yes, but again, deliverability is going to be one of the things that's going to be assessed in the bids. If we need help with introductions to key stakeholders, things like that, support. But obviously, if you write a bid that basically implies that we're going to do all your work for you, that's probably not going to get through. Does the programme have any number one impact priorities? Not for the open programme. Not for the open programme. We're not doing that for the open programme. As Mariota said, when we get to a challenge programme, the challenge programme is going to be around one specific area. The open programmes are there to allow a wide range of individuals and companies for a wide range of projects, and as people have already implied, potentially maybe pilots that can give us ideas for further challenges down the line. Can a sole trader apply who is partnered with an off-island organisation? Yes, so that's really important. We want the person who leads the bid and takes responsibility to be on island. But if as part of your bid you want to bring in external support, expertise, technology, that's fine. We've almost forgotten to say this now because we said this around the beginning. This is not necessarily about cutting bleeding edge innovation, doing something completely new in the world. If you've got a good idea for actually taking a technology that has been used very successfully elsewhere in the world that you've read about, you know about, you have a partner, that's great as well. In fact, actually, that's probably more likely to guarantee that you're going to have the impact if you've proven that it's had the impact. But it's the key is, as we used to say, we're looking for bids that are in that sweet spot of a good use of technology, ticking one of the boxes for one of the priorities, but having the right local impact. So as long as the impact is in Jersey and it solves a problem in Jersey, you can use external partners, other technology and things like that. Does that make sense? If a project is awarded a grant, is there an expectation on the revenue potential for the project? Does it have to be offered free or at a reduced ongoing revenue? That's a difficult one. What do we think about that one? I mean, Alex has already talked about open source. So I think it's back to if you are putting something forward that is purely around helping your business succeed and make money, it's not going to win. As I said, this is about projects that help industries, it might help you as well, that's fine. If you develop a product, but again, as Alex said, if you will get sort of extra points, so to speak, if you're saying, well, actually, this is going to have a broader benefit, because actually the broader the benefit it has, the more impact it is going to have, rather than helping an individual. I hope that's useful, but we can cover this at the end, and the website's launching tomorrow. If there are any questions that you want to go into more detail, you can email the team or phone someone in the team. Is it one prize for the first project or a prize per category? No, it doesn't work that at all. So we could end up giving all the money away to some great bids that are ticking one box because they're the best bids. So it's got to address one of the challenge areas at least within there. But we're not saying one for each. We're not working out like that. It'd be great if we had that many projects to do it, but I don't think it is going to work that way. No disagreement looking around here? No? Can the project have a global impact which would also have an impact on Jersey but be based on Ireland? I think the answer to that is yes. So if you come up with a way of solving a problem in Jersey that could solve a problem globally, or at least Guernsey anyway, then that's fine. If someone has different businesses they would like funding for, would be a limit to that. So again, this isn't business funding, this is project funding, if that's clear. And again, only one, each business, each individual can only put one application in with each round with a maximum of the 75k. And I appreciate for some people, we had some feedback from entrepreneurs, they might be looking for a large amount of money. Maybe that's where the challenge programs or future open programs come in. Or, as a number of you have already suggested, use it to do a pilot, think what you can do within that funding. And it's not going to be held against you if you have a certain impact, you're proving a case as part of that impact. Where else are you here? Seb's deleting them as fast as you can, can't you, Seb, when we've answered them? Does winning a bid make a project exclusive to the programme? Can you apply for additional programmes off island in conjunction? Don't see why not. Don't see why not. But we'd have to prove that there was a good reason. So why you need funding is a question you have to answer as part of the application. And you know, if you are prepared to, you know, the straighter, more open that application is, the better. And if you want to say, well, actually, I'm applying for funding in 2 places, then put that on the application. And if that is a good enough idea, when we get through to the due diligence checking, we'll say, how have you got on elsewhere? It's a bit like when you're claiming on travel insurance and they say, are you able to claim in another policy first before you come to us? Sorry if that doesn't make complete sense. It was just off the top of my head. There are 2 aspects for a grant bid to fail: problem and solution. How do you solve impact? Chat say good idea, but external judges say not a good problem. I hugely understand that, but I think it's up to you guys to be clear in your bid. And back to what Mariota said about these surgeries and the support we have, if you want to run something past us and see what we think, then do. If you say, well, actually, you know, do you think this would count as an eligible bid? Come and talk to us so you don't waste your time. So only 1 project application per person. Yes. Yes, that's fine. So I think that's all the questions from Slido. Please carry on. Anyone got does anyone want to be a bit retro and analog and actually shout out? Or we've got a microphone if someone wants to speak from the audience. Yeah, okay.
Hi, Guy O'Connor. First of all, congratulations, fantastic work.
Okay.
If your program is assuming that in order to achieve, for example, a productivity jump governmentally, that this would be adopted.
Yeah.
But obviously you haven't. You don't have those conversations prior to presenting the solution. How does that work?
I think that's about exploring the problem statement. Is that the sort of thing you want? And that's where you can use the opportunity to come and talk to us in advance and say, actually, is this a known problem? Because we've obviously had the sessions with ministers, we had conversations with government. If necessary, we can speak to, I'm sure, Louise and Alex and others to say, actually, this is a new one. We'd not thought of this. Is this a problem? Do you want to say a few words? Thanks, Louise.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, sorry, I couldn't quite see who was asking the question when I was sitting there. Can you? Oh, hi, sorry. Thanks. So a little bit about the interplay between government and DJ on this and the setting of the policy challenges. So my role in this project has been as senior responsible officer or irresponsible officer, but also as someone who works in the Cabinet Office and is deeply involved in developing policy for the government of Jersey. Boo. And so one of the things that we know we can do is help people identify problems, and I'm sure you know where there are problems in your island, and you'll have ideas about how technology can solve those. So there's really nothing wrong with exploring those opportunities with DJ or with us or with people that you know in departments. You know, you may already be working with people in certain ways or have good ideas and have contacts. We can direct you to people who can help explore your problem statement or help, you can help them. I think there's nothing wrong with that. This is meant to be collaborative. This is to get the best possible problem statement and the best solution for it, which then lets the bid fly in its most, in its best way, basically. So like I say, I don't think there's any problem at all with having those discussions. And I did spot on the Slido, there was a question, I think Tony tackled the question, which was, I think the question was trying to get at the idea that maybe external judges wouldn't be as familiar with our problems. I think that's maybe what it was trying to say a little bit. And again, I think what we can always do is take ourselves back to the challenges and common strategic priorities of this government. They've been very clear in articulating what they see are our big challenges for the next 4 years. It's housing, it's living longer, it's health, it's sustainable transport. It's all things you've seen in the slides. Your work and your knowledge in those spaces will help you bring technology to those solutions, and we're really to those challenges. And we're really keen to help unpick that for you as much as we can as well. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Louise. That's really helpful. Any other questions from the audience? Yep, I've got one here.
I don't usually need this. Just to follow on from that, you talk about collaboration and encouraging people to work together. If during the process you have individuals who are successful and other people are doing things that could allow them to collaborate, is there a way that when you submit your application, you can say these are the sorts of other opportunities we'd like to talk to so that we can do more collaboration on? And would people be willing to share the sorts of things they're working on to see if we could actually collaborate and make it work better? I'm thinking some of the things I want to do, I'm sure there are people on Island who are doing very complementary activities, because I'm already talking to a couple, but it would be great to know that as we're going through this process, we could be connected, and even if one company or business or opportunity or project is successful, to know that it would be encouraged to go and find some of those other folks to bring into that mix, just to help to further enhance the value of the project and the impact.
So that's a really good question. I think there's a couple of ways of doing that. I think when you come in for the surgeries and things like that, an idea, I'm not averse to us looking at a bit of matchmaking. If we get somebody coming in and saying, I've got a really great idea, but I need help with such and such, I need to find someone who can do that. Is that side of it? I think if someone is a winning bidder, part of that ongoing support could be finding it. But it's probably worth saying is that the stronger your bid is, in terms of you've already found collaborators, it's going to be more likely. I mean, obviously, if you've got such an amazing idea that no one else has come up with and the judges get really struck with it, but you say, I'm going to need a bit of help, then, you know, ideally we'd have a process where the judges would say, well, actually, would you consider, we really like this idea as judges, is there going to be the sort of support to do it? And we don't know until we see the bids. Is that fair, team? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Tony, it was even slightly different than that. Assuming you put in a successful winning bid, if there are people who have other opportunities that you can bring in along the way, then
Yes.
could you then potentially say, right, this is what we put in the first place, this is what we said we'd like to add to it.
Yeah.
Now we're partway through, and
Yeah.
we find that we found additional people we could work with. Is there anything to stop you from doing that, as long as it gets approved internally?
In principle, yes. I think we have to be careful, back to what I said about, you know, if somebody's putting their bid in, we're not necessarily doing it for them, but curating it and getting overly involved. But yeah, I think if something's a really good bid and someone's going, I would see some of that as support to say, well, actually, I need somebody to do this, or even, you know, somebody coming back to us and saying, well, I thought I had somebody lined up or a solution for doing X, Y, and Z. That's fallen through. Can you help us get back on track? That's the sort of support we would provide.
Okay, can we reverse that? Let's say if we're going transparency-wise, I presume that the successful projects will be openly available and people will understand what they are.
Yes.
Will
That's
other
a good
people
point.
outside be encouraged to come to those projects and say, hey, I've got something really cool, I'd like to work with you after we get the process going? Because it's not so much I'm looking at, I need holes to fill, as other people may come up with things along the way that would be beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's up to someone, if they were the winning bidder, if they wanted to open it up like that. We don't want to bombard people with everyone wants to get involved in something, because that's not necessarily the best way to get the project done in a timely way. But yes, I think we can do that, definitely, if someone's a winning bid. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience? Have we got any more? Oh, sorry.
So can the funding be used for IP protection? So example, I took part in a sort of UK health similar type challenge. Came up with a solution which needs protection. The problem exists here, and we've already engaged with health who agree the problem does exist here. We wouldn't want to launch it here on a small scale, because that opens up our solution on a sort of global platform. So could we put a bid in for a grant to say, here's our idea, here's the solution. Actually, we just want some money to globally protect.
That's a difficult one, because that goes back to helping an individual business, but it could have the right impact. What do you think, Minister?
I think, as Tony says, there are on this island many ways of accessing different types of funding. We are looking for those who are happy to sit in that sweet spot between wanting to see themselves succeed, solve a great challenge, and that challenge be relevant and direct to the island. So in that kind of case, it feels more that the IP protection is ancillary to you then being able to sell a service into government perhaps, or sell it to the private sector, and that's an entirely valid thing to do. I think it sounds less likely than funding something that more directly goes to address an island challenge.
But that comes back to what I was saying. I mean, look, it's very early days, and the intention is to make this grant programs. But if somebody had a fantastic idea a couple of years down the line and they wanted a significant investment from the fund, and we thought this was going to be this would solve a problem, but going to be a money spinner, we'd want to protect the taxpayer by having, whether it's a licensing agreement or something like that. So I think I probably wouldn't see that fitting into the open program, certainly the first open program, the amounts we're talking about. But it might be the sort of thing that comes into a challenge program if it's a more significant investment. The other thing it's worth saying is, and especially maybe when we come later on, we've not put this as a condition, but actually it helps if it's matched funding. So you might say, actually, we're going to get, I've got an investor, someone in here, we've got some government funding going into that, but actually we've got some private investment, and the private investment is going to be used for the IP protection and things like that. I mean, there's still going to be, government would have to might still want to look at licensing and what benefit we got ongoing, but thanks for coming up with a complicated one, but we'll have to think about it.
And I'll just add, when we've, thrown around ideas as to what does impact mean, and I've been quite, I've been quite ambitious and challenging, if we're funding projects, should we be looking at open source? And within that, that's everything from opening up your lessons learned all the way to open source code. It could be open data, but not the algorithm. It could be the core of a product, but it couldn't be the SaaS around it. And really, you could come with something that has no open source. But the first question I think you'll see when you think about the criteria is, if you are producing something that is entirely closed, entirely proprietary, and you intend to sell to the government or the people of the island at a high price, that's a harder sell than someone who comes along with something that's more collaborative with the island, with the government, or with people on the island. So I think that's the way I look at it. It's not a this or that. You can come with an idea on any part of that spectrum, but if you ask the question, is it clear how this delivers impact beyond my own or my business's success? I think that's a really clear and simple kind of navigator to follow.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's really good. Got another question here.
Thank you. What would be more valuable, better scored? 70,000 very impactful idea, or a 5,000 proof of concept that idea? Very good proof of concept.
That's an interesting question. I think that's the confidence you've got of saying it's obviously easier for the judges to say yes to a £5,000 project. So, and this is why it's been really important. We had feedback when we're working with Challenge Works that I mentioned, that it's important to tell people there are going to be more and more rounds of this. Because you might say, either you might not be hugely convinced yourself, or you might think, well, I'm going to do it as a small part-time project. You might put an initial bid in and say, I'm not going to be as ambitious this initial bid, small proof of concept, you get the money, and then the next level, if that's successful, you apply for the next open program. In an ideal world, we were potentially running these open programs about every 6 months if we're successful with it. So you could do it like that. Obviously, if everyone goes straight for the 75,000, we're going to be able to approve less than those. And it's worth saying, we're not automatically giving the money away. We will give the money away if we get enough good bids. But I think that's up to you as to what you think is the most compelling idea. If you think you've got a fantastic idea, well thought through, with a really strong delivery plan, good impact, and you're going to go for the 75,000, then please do go for it. If you think, actually, right now I'm going to do a proof of concept, 5, 10,000, whatever, then that's equally as valuable, and as I said, more likely that the judges might say, you know what, we take a chance on this one, because it's quite a nice idea, it's not a lot of money, whereas something like 75k, they might want to be a lot more certain and sure of themselves. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Have we got any more on Slido? I saw a few mischievous looks from the audience that suggested they were going to type an anonymous question on Slido, but obviously not. It's like watching bidders. That's not a question, is it? You're just wiping your eye. Right, any more questions online there? Has that been useful in terms of understanding what it is? That's great, thank you. And so what I would say is the website's going to go online. There's more detail on the website. But please do, if you've got an idea, if you've got questions, use the email address. I mean, you're mostly techies, so you're not going to use the phone number, are you? But email us, ask us a question. Don't be afraid to do it. If you've got an idea, you want to have a chat, we'll have the facility for these, want of a better word, surgeries. You can come in and chat to one of the team, go off and talk to each other. If you want to approach us and ask for help in all sorts of different ways, like you've got a gap in your project, somebody can do something, find a collaborator, we can help with things like that. But as Mariotta said, we're running the scheme for this. We can help, but we're not putting the bids in. This is only going to work if you guys have the ideas and put in the solutions. But it's worth saying, the team and I are really excited about this, and I think we should all be excited about this. Anyone who watches Yes Minister will know, they always say the best way to put off a minister from approving something is to tell them it's brave. I think this is bloody brave, actually, especially after the Innovation Fund and the way certain people had a real go at people about the Innovation Fund. We're undeservedly so, in my view. We've got a government that is putting £20 million. This was ring-fence half of the original special dividend that JT gave government from selling its IoT division. £20 million into technology projects in Jersey. I think that's quite brave. I think that is very supportive of government and technology industry. I think it's getting us to where we've been saying for a long time, where's the commitment that goes into technology in Jersey and being serious about it. But it won't go anywhere if we don't have ideas from you guys and others in Jersey. But if you've got an idea, if you've got a proposal, if you need any help, come and talk to us about it. Because that's what we're here for. But I think, and hopefully you will see the potential in this. We're starting off small because we want to make sure we learn lessons. So when we go back to government and ask for serious levels of money for bigger projects and bigger risks that come with that, let's be honest. And actually I've been really impressed. Alex and lots of others have said, we want to have a different view of risk that government normally takes. That's why we're doing it through Digital Jersey and government isn't making the specific decisions. But we want to be able to give confidence to the whole island that this is going to work and it's not going to be a waste of money. And the best way we can do that is having some brilliant projects. Can you imagine, wouldn't it be great to keep opening up the JP, looking online and seeing stories about successful projects that have proven how we can solve problems using technology in Jersey? Because what I want to do is I want to get Jersey addicted to doing this. I want to get Jersey addicted to using technology to solve our problems, because that's going to be great for us as an industry and it's going to be great for the whole island. So please do take part. If you're at all unsure, look at the website when it goes live tomorrow. You heard it here from Kelly, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If you've got any questions, let us know. Use the team, use the advantage. If we can't answer the questions, we'll find out. We'll think about it. We've been open with you tonight, so we haven't thought of everything. I'm sure you'll come up with even more questions that we haven't quite thought about. But thank you for coming tonight. Thank you in anticipation for the bids you're going to put in. But as I said, please let us help you. Please put in a bid. And please help us make Impact Jersey not only impactful, but really successful. Successful to the point where that 20 million is the start. Wouldn't it be great if we got through that 20 million, showed the impact, the return on investment that had got the island, and we went back and future governments were able to say, actually, this is great. We need to put more money in it this way. Great. Thank you for listening.